Hello, welcome back to Tomahawk Fab Works. Hopefully this will be a short one because I know I get a little wordy and long-winded at times, but I like to bring detail to what I'm doing so there's absolutely no question later on about, well, hopefully not too many questions anyway, about what I've been doing here. And this time I'm replacing the thermostat housing on a 2014 Chevy Cruz. So let me show you what I had to do here. So later on in the video, you'll see where this is located on the car. But as you stand in front of the engine at the front of the car, it's going to be on the right-hand side, right near the top, and you'll see a bunch of hoses going in and out of it. All right. So yeah, it sits like that in the engine, and this side is bolted to the side of the block with four reverse Torx bits, fasteners. You got to have these for it, right? I believe I used this one right here. Yeah, number 10 reverse Torx. I ordered a whole new assembly from Rock Auto. So $60 or so. I'm not sure. I have to go back and look, but not really important. It was under $100. And these right here are an odd size that I don't have. I was trying to check them for tightness, and believe me, when they shipped it to me, these were snug down. No need to touch them, but I just had to check it for my own personal preference. The only thing I noticed really straight off was that this being the original factory piece, the fasteners poke through a couple of threads. They're not the positions right. And on the new one, they were completely flush. So whoever designed the bolt designed it right to the right spec of it was right flat flush at the other end, right to the millimeter. So not that hard to come apart. You got clamps here, here, and here, and there's a sensor with a clip. Show you that. So because the new one comes with the sensor installed. If this be cooperating, stand back up. All right, cool. The electrical connections, there's one right here, and there's one right here, and then there's two more that are on a bracket that is screwed into, that sits on here sort of like this, where this protective cover is on right now, and there's a 10mm bolt holding it, and I believe it goes on like this because the bigger one goes in this square hole right here, and the smaller one in the back goes in that little round hole right there. So yeah, it's just easier to take off that 10mm bolt, which happens to be this one right here, and it screws on here, yada yada yada, and holds on the bracket. And so yeah, take that off and use a pair of needle nose pliers to squeeze the pinch points on the little plastic clamps that are holding the wire harness on there, and you get that right off. So now those are out of your way a little bit more, and it's easier to work on. Also, which I've come to find out was broke, and I had to come up with a solution in fairly short order because the car is a daily driver and it is needed. So I think, yeah, okay. Get my high-tech display table here going. On the top right here, you'll find this hold down clamp, and this ultimately was broken. I'll show you the pieces here. All right, so this device right here goes in like this, and it sets in there like this, right? And you'll see that. And then this device, which holds it in, snaps on like that and holds it on. right? Now, if this isn't broke, like mine was, you simply carefully pull this fastener off and you pull this device out, like so. But mine was broke, I come to find out. And not only that, it was broke, and there's an O-ring in between here somewhere. And this is totally useless now, but I saved it for the video presentation. And so yeah, so that was part of the repair that I'm going to be showing you later. So this, like I said, some of the electrical connections are kind of tricky to come off, so it's easier just to pull this out because the one I ordered had a new one in it anyway. So it goes in here like this. Right. And then this clip right here goes down in here, and you'll see that. And luckily they installed it facing up so you can snatch that out with a pair of needle nose pliers or whatever other tool that you choose to use. And yeah, so you undo the fasteners here one by one. They're all the same size, so you don't have to fart around and memorize which one goes where. And after that, it basically comes out. And I will say that getting these two off right here while it's still in the car is tricky because there's other doodads in the way, of course. They're going to make this somewhat difficult, but be careful, stick with it, and you can get them off. And then it's just a simple matter of choosing how you really want to put this back. You know, it might be easier for you to put the two rear hoses on first, get that clamped off, yada yada yada, instead of and having this movable in a way so it'd be easier for you to do, instead of like screwing this back onto the side of the engine, you know, and having that stationary and then try to get these back on. It all depends on how you feel about that. And then this one in the front's real easy to get on and off. Just, you know, undo the clamp and take care and put it back on. This electrical connection's not too bad. You just gotta pull back on a blue or gray little fastener holder downer, and you can jiggle that right off. This, on the other hand, was a different affair. So, like I said before, this was on here, and this was broke, and so now what do I do? Well, I looked at it, right? And if you look at it, if you look at this, right, and then look at these hose connections, you notice something suspiciously familiar about each one. They all have that little flange bump at the end to help hold the hose on, and hello, this one does too. It's slightly different, like with a sharper edge, but basically the same deal. And I had to think to myself, was the original plan to have like a molded 90-degree elbow hose coming off of this with a clamp? Because ultimately that's all this thing is. There's no sensor that goes in here like this. It's just a low pressure air/water connection. I have no clue what the functionality of this thing is, but it was necessary. So I looked at it and I thought, you know, I've got some box of hoses from leftover from other stuff. So ultimately I came up with you can use a heater hose. And I'll get a piece here, hold on. Alrighty, so I had two sizes. One was slightly bigger than the other, but for this application, 5/8 is the size you need. And this goes right on there. And you can use a regular screw type clamp to hold that on, right? And then later on, so I measured the inside diameter of this with a caliper, which came out to be 5/16. It's not exactly 5/16. It's like 19/128 fraction, whatever the heck that was. but you just moved the dial a little bit and it went right to 5/16. So I cobbled together a temporary repair, right, that I'll show later on. And so went to the auto parts store and I says, I need some rubber hose with a 5/16 inside diameter. And the lady was nice enough to let me go back and help her peruse their selection of hose. And I grabbed the first thing I saw, which was fuel line, but it did have a 5/16 inside diameter, and that's the stuff I wanted. So I ordered, well, not ordered, but I purchased 7 feet just in case, you know, I screwed up and need to do it again, blah, blah, blah. Or just have another extra piece laying around for some other emergency that may crop up in the future. Yada, yada, yada. So, moving on to the next part of this. And before I do, I'll show you how I did this. So where is, okay, so here's the 5/16. So so this goes on here. And I cut a short piece. And then the idea is to, alright, so this goes on the thing right here, and the other end of the short end goes into here. Now you notice that it's pretty sloppy. And even if you clamp this down, I would not trust that. So I had to find some way to shim this, right? Also in my box of scraps. And so this is just like the cheapest piece of crap garden hose that you could possibly purchase, which I didn't. This is all I needed for the project at the time. So yeah, so this goes into here. It does. I don't know if I can get it to go here, but yeah, it does. You just gotta. There, see, it goes in. So I wiped some oil on that and shoved an inch or two into that hose. And then, with that shim in there, this you can squeeze into. It goes in because, believe me, oh, it was a job getting in there too. So this needed some grease and oil and a lot of swearing and persuasion to get that to go in. I can't do it here, but trust me, that's what I use to put this deal together with. So if you're wondering how I even got to the auto parts store with this broken hose affair, so this is the end I had to cut, split open, and sacrifice. And this was already connected because I broke that off trying to get all this junk off. But I happen to have, you know, this is part of the rubber hose, this thing right here from my brake bleeding operation I was doing. And I just stuck a big old screw in the end to plug that off. And then here's a piece of the heater hose I used to make the part, you know, that eventually fixed the car. And I found a pin or a bolt or whatever and just stuck that in the end and clamped it off just so I could drive there and get this hose. Okay, so now we'll see the final installation and you can see how it all came together, and hopefully this helps you out. Okay, so it's on. So here is the new thermostat housing, and here's the solution I came up with. Here's the heater hose with a, you know, traditional clamp on it, and this is the hose I picked up at the auto parts store. This is actually fuel hose, I guess rated for 50 pounds per square inch, but ultimately you don't need that. I don't know if there's an alternate hose to use. I just knew I needed something with a 5/16 inside diameter. So this is what I used. And so this went into the short piece of heater hose, and I ultimately had to use a piece of scrap, super cheap garden hose that I've had laying around for years as a filler. So it's the garden hose, and then this goes inside the garden hose, and this is tightened down. And so I just routed it basically the same way, right? And put a big loop in it. I tried to save the original elbow preformed rubber hose coming off of this thing, but coming off of the throttle body there, but that thing fought me every step of the way, and I eventually had to cut it. So that's no more. I just reused the clamp, and so there you go. That's the fix. Okay, so there you go. There's a repair, the thermostat housing installation, kind of, sort of. I didn't show the installation because it's just that straightforward and not really that complicated. It took me 2.5 hours to get off the old one, put the new one back on, and discover that top part was broken and had to cobble together a repair to go to the auto parts store. So if you think it was a good job, all that kind of stuff, let me know. Try and be nice to me in the comments if you can. And if you stuck, all the way to the end of this video, also thanks again. I'm working on the Pontiac still. I've got a new transmission oil filter, transmission fluid filter to put in. No big mystery there. Just take off the cover, put the new one in. It's like one bolt, and I'm sure there's like 500 videos on YouTube about how to do that. But I also have a low car, real nice transmission dipstick that I want to install, which isn't exactly what I'd hoped it'd be, but it's still nice. And I'm hoping to modify it slightly so it'd be more like the more expensive one that you can get, because the more expensive one has all these features. It's got a snap locking ring on it, and if you ever decide to take the engine out, the whole hose unsnaps, with the snap rings and stuff. And there's even a plug down at the bottom where it goes into the transmission case, and there's you can put the plug in, to protect the opening while you're doing your work on your motor or whatever it is you're doing, right? So, but that's like over $200, and I just didn't want to give up the clams at the time. So we'll see how this one goes. But anyway, please like and subscribe and share. Sometimes I post on Facebook, Tomahawk Fab Works Facebook page. So have a nice day, if you can.